Namo Myo Renge Kyo. Hello, friends. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your practice. I hope this finds you in good health and secure. I don't say those words, tritely. The world, all over the world, and many of the places where you guys are living, we're just surrounded by so much ego struggles, politics, violence, threats. Our world today seems to be always on the edge of potential huge humanitarian disaster, and not just from stupid humans, but earthquakes, volcanoes, mudslides, excessive rains, climate change, blah 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 blah. It's a huge thing, and I think as modern people in this latter age of the law, we are incredibly adaptive creatures, aren't we? And we take the stress around us and we somehow, it's a terrible word for it, but we somehow normalize it so that we just learn to exist within it. And I can't speak for any of you, but my own Buddhist practice has just every year I seem to be more and more not only aware of it, but I sense it in my bones. It's just something that must change, must be mollified, must be challenged, but not in the same way as the challenges go on around us, as simply violent, right? How do we change it? How do we address it? And right now we're reading the opening of the Eyes Gosho again with a different kind of mind of comprehension of what Nichiren's whole mission is as a votary of the Lotus Sutra, as you and I are emulating Nichiren. What are we trying to do? And I say all of this in the context of, this composite I put together of Nichiren's words having to do with Mandala and Gohonzon. I think, as I've said before, we tend to forget that everything Nichiren is talking about is about Gohonzon. Not this mandala that you see behind me, partially. That mandala is an amazing tool, and it's a concise representation of Nichiren's aha moment on what the entire goal of Shakyamuni's teachings were 3,000 years ago for over 50 years of his life, what his culminating method goal was and is. And he captured it in a samsaric object, a mandala, but the mandala isn't even the scroll so much as it is the purpose of the scroll, right? Mandala isn't a word that says, piece of paper with pictograms on it. It's not what mandala means. Mandala is a focal object, not just visually, but a focal object visually and mentally. All of the functions of our minds, our consciousness, put to task to perceive something, right? That's mandala. But that's not Gohonzon. Gohonzon is the actual transmigratory act, experience of going through, being in that perceptive alteration. From here to there requires a passage, right? There is the room, there is the door, and there is the other room. And in order to go from one room to the other room, or the outside into or the inside out, there is a doorway. And that doorway with everything it implies, offers, is Gohonzon. It is the ultimate commitment to passage into Buddha. Yeah? So, if you understand this, then listen to what Nichiren has been doing in the last several videos as we read through this opening of the eyes, the passing through the door, the opening of the eyes, yeah, perception. Nichiren right now is going through the history of Buddhism, and he's demonstrating with Shakyamuni's own teachings, from Hinayana to early Mahayana to the Lotus Sutra, how he's been walking us through this process of perceiving something beyond what we think is everything. Our samsaric idea of everything is this voracious appetite of identifying and labeling, including self. And if we're going to be free of all of that database, warehouse maintenance, of all the stuff, and experience it moment to moment as life, not a collection of stuff, but the creation of stuff over and over and over and over again, that paradigm shift of understanding what life is, we have to perceive the nature of mind and therefore its maximal potential without adhering. Yes? And so, although Nichiren has described the words Go and Honzon, he didn't do much of that. He just wanted to give us a word tool, a concept in mind, so we would understand what we're going for isn't achievement. Wow, I'm doing this really good. I sit upright and I chant clearly and I have this thing, this mandala. But that's not it. Those are all tools to get you there, right? You could admire the doorway all day long. Hell, you could build it. But that doesn't mean you've gone through it. You might as well just draw it on the wall. You're still in the frickin' room. Yeah? You've got to go through it. You've got to perceive the portal of it. It's got to suck you right out of that room into this completely different space. That transmigratory moment, that's Gohonzon. And this is what he's saying now. You don't really get that in Shakyamuni's teachings until the lifespan chapter of the Lotus Sutra. Even the beginnings of the Lotus Sutra are still preparing you. Identifying that door, that whatever you want to call it, that passage, that Honzon. Right? But in the lifespan chapter, it's where he goes, okay, now, boom. Take everything I've taught you and now disconnect it from this gold star trophy accomplishment. I'm so smart. I know so much. Toss that out of the way. Because now, boom, here's everything. And all that is really good. Good job. But this is where we're going. This is your big transmigration of your mind. Right? I didn't achieve something. Me, Shakyamuni, the man, I didn't stumble upon, oh, look, Buddha. I'm not Buddha. Buddha is everything as experienced. Without your sentient mind experiencing Buddha, there's no Buddha. It just is what it is. It's the process of life. It's the engine of life. It's the freaking universe. Does it care what your opinion is? Hell no. It's just doing what it does. Energy, informations. Just freaking accelerating, going, instantiating every type of potential it can possibly manifest. It doesn't have a will. It doesn't know what it's doing. It's not a competitor, and it's not a coddler. All it is, if you're going to label it anything, is an opportunity, and it's not an opportunity for Mars. It's not an opportunity for Alpha Centauri. It's an opportunity for you, the sentient mind. Where does Buddha happen? The sentient mind. For what purpose? To observe it, to witness it, to be awed by it. What is it? The formations of this engine of life. Energy transforming, amalgamating, forming, manifesting potential constantly. That's what you are, that's what I am, that's what this is, that's what videos are, that's what everything is, simply manifesting moment to moment from the energies of potential, always different, always changing. Oh, it looks static enough. It looks like I own this camera and I have this car and I have this building and I have this face but you have to know. In your mind, you have to know. Just live a few years and you see how things really don't stay the same. We keep having this false expectation that when we open the cupboard, the new jar of peanut butter will be there. But at one point, you have opened that cover and that jar is empty. Well, dang it, how'd that happen? Because nothing stays the same, ever. What's the true revelation about that is that it's happening now, faster than I can speak. That's what makes you sit back down and go, all of this stuff that I'm seeing right now with my incredibly slow eye consciousness, what's really happening is it's constantly recreating. Oh my. Kind of makes you feel like if you reached out and grabbed something, your hand might just go right through it. And given enough time, it would. It's just that our perception, our hanging on to of things, makes us rely on this illusion that things are permanent. And they seem that way in our perception as samsaric beings. Yeah, sure. I'm sitting on this chair because I have a high degree of confidence that it's going to exist in the next few moments so I don't fall on my butt on the floor, right? Which I also have confidence exists. But that's not the point. The point is, how amazing is it that the fact that the chair I'm sitting on is recreating itself moment to moment to moment as my butt is, and between them, they've made this arrangement of holding me up while I speak to you on this video camera. Geez, if you understand it as it's really occurring, it's much more amazing than what we take for granted. Yeah, he's sitting on a stool, big deal. It's because we've limited our understanding of what's actually happening, and it's convenient for us to think that way. It kind of works. Sorta. We think it works anyway, right? Till the day we sit on a chair and it breaks. Oh, shattered my confidence in that. Well, I'm not sitting on these chairs again. Yeah, okay. I'm saying, it may sound silly what I'm saying, but truly, to understand Namo Myoho Renge Kyo, to really get it, and thereby getting Nichiren's dialogue about it, we can kind of empathize with him or sympathize. His task of explaining to medieval Japanese this idea as something distinctly different from what they seem to be practicing every day. Because people get caught in rituals, It's just like making a grilled cheese. You make a grilled cheese the same way you did since you were a child. Whether you use a clothing iron or a skillet or whatever. Until somebody shows you a different way. Oh, I use mayonnaise instead of butter. What? Yeah. It works really well. It's kind of a little different flavor. Kind of like it. My mom used to slice tomatoes super thin. Like, see right through it. And put little thin slices of tomato in her grilled cheese. And sometimes even super thin slices of onion on the tomato. And when the cheese all melted in that grilled cheese, there was just this hint of tomato. Just a slight, so good, so like gourmet grilled cheese. But until you saw that or heard me say it, what? How is that a grilled cheese? We're pattern builders, aren't we? And Buddhism is all about not only dropping the patterns, our adherence, our attachment to patterns is something we don't even think about. But how can you think about patterns if you haven't been taught to look for them? This is the history of Buddhism, my friends. Look at the patterns that your mind creates all the time, for everything. Now, don't get rid of all that stuff. It's part of life. It's instantiations. It's just as valid as you are. But it's that attachment to those patterns that creates all of suffering and anxiety and emotions, tensions, destruction, avarice. What if we could have all the stuff, but detach ourselves from it? Just a little. Just let it be and be along with it as it occurs. If you understand that nothing is permanent, that it's always changing, then automatically your brain says, well, then what the hell are you attached to? Vapor. Oh, emptiness. That's what emptiness is about. Not that stuff doesn't exist, but that existence is a moment-to-moment thing, not a permanent thing. Trying to grab and hang on to things permanent is the illusion. And let that sink in. Strange as this may seem, he goes on in this Gosho, we may suppose that since the Immeasurable Meaning Sutra is intended to serve as an introduction to the Myoho Renge Kyo, it deliberately refrains from speaking about doctrines to be revealed in the Myoho Renge Kyo itself. It's like, I'm about to tell you. But when we turn to the Lotus Sutra, the Myoho Renge Kyo, we find that in the sections where the Buddha discusses in both concise and expanded form the replacement of the three vehicles with the one vehicle, he says, quote, the true aspect of all phenomena can only be understood and shared between Buddhas, end quote. What does he mean? What does he mean when he says that? That you have to be like all those excellent Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas and Arhats. You have to have A plus on all your studies and a bunch of stars collected and your trophy of having achieved the wisdom of Buddha, when you haven't really achieved it, right? What you've achieved is a deep understanding of how your brain works, how your samsaric mind works, but you haven't transcended samsara yet. You're still looking at a closed door on the wall. There's the door. I understand the door. I know how the door works. Have you walked through it? No. Maybe you think you have, but all you've done is describe the damn door. This is why he says, only once you've walked through it can you then go, oh, wow, what I didn't know. Isn't that how so many things happen in our lives? Especially those of you who've lived a little while. How many times when you were 25 and you looked back at your 15-year-old self and thought, oh, gosh, what an embarrassingly stupid person. How could I even think? I didn't even know to know. To think to know. Ugh, I'm so embarrassed. Well, maybe at 15 you had some moments of brilliance, but overall, your 25-year-old self is, yeah, let's not talk about that. How about your 35-year-old self, your 45-year-old self? If you're not there yet, you've got to know. You've lived long enough to know it's going to happen again. At some point, don't you ask yourself, maybe I shouldn't be so adamant about anything? Maybe I'm going to regret being so adamant later. When you find yourself in contention with somebody, you go, no, this is this way. Isn't that little voice in the back of your head go, hang on, hold back. Just maybe it's not this way. Maybe there's something you don't know. Much of Buddhism is this exact process. The difference is in Buddhism, we have this tool now, and this was taught 3,000 years ago as well. We have this tool that says whatever it is that you think you know, always, always know with absolute conviction there is something far beyond knowing, because knowing is always about the past. Experiencing is about now and into the future. It's about the complete picture of what karma is, of the engine of life, of your life. Not the collected data that you're hanging on to. That's not you. It was the road on which you built you, but you are so much more than that road. Right? So until you get off that road and you see the complete picture, how can you talk about the complete picture? That's all this says. The true aspect of all phenomena can only be understood and shared between Buddhas. So how do we all get to that? Well, you got to go through that door, the Gohonzon. Not that, not the mandala, right? The world-honored one, quote, unquote, or the quote, the world-honored one has long expounded his doctrines. I've been talking about this all along, he says, and now I must reveal the truth, end quote. And, quote, honestly discarding expedient means, all the stories, all the helpful teachings, all the ways to get you to start to understand how the sentient mind works in your life, I will preach only the unsurpassed way. Myoho Renge Kyo. End quote. What is this Buddha like? What is the experience of enlightenment? I dropped a bunch of frames. One of these days, I will have a better video capture machine. It's coming. Continuing. Moreover, many treasures Buddha testifies to the verity of the 8 chapters of the theoretical teaching, declaring that these are all true. We would suppose, therefore, that in them there would be nothing held back for or concealed. Nevertheless, the Buddha hides the fact that he attained enlightenment countless kalpas ago, for he says, quote, I first sat in the place of meditation and gazed at the tree and walked around it, end quote. This is surely the most profound, most astounding fact of all. But all he is saying in that part of the Lotus Sutra, in the earlier chapters of the Lotus Sutra, is you got to sit down and focus. You got to wrap all your attention around this. And then he drops the mic, yeah? Which is exactly what you and I do when we sit in front of our Butsudan, our Bodhi tree, yeah? And we focus on not the tree, but the nature of the tree, the teaching of Buddha-ness encapsulated in this mandala that we're trying to focus our samsaric mind on to pop through the Gohonzon mind and be in Buddha-ness. Instantiate that Gohonzon mind. That's what we're trying to do. And this is what Shakyamuni is describing in the Lotus Sutra. Get ready. This is what we're going to do. This is how all of us do it. Myoho Renge Kyo, yeah? In the Emerging from the Earth chapter, a multitude of bodhisattvas who had not been seen previously in the more than 40 years of the Buddha's preaching life suddenly appear, and the Buddha says, quote, I taught and converted them and caused them for the first time to set their minds on the way, end quote. Here's this time issue again. Bodhisattvas of the Earth, Emerging from the Earth chapter, is about you and I coming to be in the future. From the earth are born. We are born in the future bodhisattvas. But the enlightenment to which we work toward is about the engine of life which precedes us since before time. That's what that means. These future bodhisattvas, Buddha-ness has always been there. You're born knowing this. You're born of this. You're part of the process. That's what this means. Bodhisattva Maitreya, he's confused. He's puzzled by this announcement, and he says, World-honored one, when the thus come one was crowned prince, you left the palace of the Shagas. He's talking about the life of Siddhartha now, not Buddha. And sat at the place of meditation not far from the city of Gaya, and there you attained supreme perfect enlightenment. You just did it in your life. You are Buddha. Barely 40 years or more have passed since then. How, in those 40 years since you attained Buddhahood, did you teach these people that don't even exist yet prior to now? What? World-honored one, how is it in that short time of the last 40 years of your life could you have accomplished so much work as a Buddha? Right? Because people still attach, Maitreya still attached to the idea that Buddha is something that Shakyamuni achieved. We don't achieve Buddha. Buddha is the awareness of the engine of life that has been here without time. That's what Buddha is, not Shakyamuni. Shakyamuni became aware of the engine of life and experienced it, Buddha, in his life as a man, but that experience of isn't new. He didn't create it. He didn't find it in the sand. It's the nature of life. All phenomena. He just worked incredibly diligently to become aware of it. And anyone who becomes aware of it, millennia from now or in the past, their enlightenment of it, the light in the attic, only enables them to see, to become aware of what has been going on all along, the engine of life. That awareness, that aha moment, that's Buddha. Not a person, not a thing. It's an awareness. How do we get to that awareness from this blind, samsaric, physical universe that we're so adhered to? We go through something, a migration from this mind of attachment to the mind of perception. That transmigration is Gohonzon. That's our entire goal in our Buddhist practice, is to get through that migration. Open that gate, as Nichiren, or as Nagarjuna would call it. Yeah? Some kind of a border, some kind of a transmigratory act. In order to dispel this doubt and puzzlement, Shakyamuni Buddha, the Lord of Teachings, then preaches the lifespan chapter. Okay, let me answer you, Maitreya. Let me tell you what it is that you're having trouble grasping. Referring first to the version of events presented in the earlier sutras and the theoretical teachings of the Lotus Sutra, he says, quote, "In all the worlds, the heavenly and human beings and asuras all have confidence that the present Shakyamuni that you see before you, after leaving the place of the Shakyas, seated himself in the place of meditation not far from the city of Gaya, and there attained supreme perfect enlightenment," end quote. Attained, not achieved, attained. In other words, he reached into perfect enlightenment. It wasn't something that he developed. It wasn't the size of his guns, right? It wasn't his intellect. He didn't grow a third eye in the middle of his forehead, right? Those are all stories to talk about conceptually altered reality. But that altered reality isn't something that belongs to Shakyamuni. He didn't invent it. He perceived it as a pre-existing condition that in our normal samsaric state, we don't even have an inkling we need to find. Even though it's always at work within us, we just don't know it. Right? How many times in your life have you gone, I don't know how the hell I knew to do that, but I'm so glad I did. Remember the 3,000 realms in a single thought moment? That's the Buddha, the Bodhisattva nature within you. You just haven't recognized yet that you could actually live in that awareness all the time. You don't have to be a Buddhist to have that quality. It's innate. But as Buddhists, we can awaken it in our conscious mind here and now and live with that all the time. Wow, how exciting is that? But then in order to dispel their doubts, in all the world, I'm sorry, I skipped ahead. He says, in all the world, but then, in order to dispel their doubts, he says, quote, but good men and women and all of you, it's been immeasurable, boundless, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s, millions of nayutas of kalpas. And this is where the English falls apart again in translation. Since I, in fact, attained Buddhahood. It really should read more like, since Buddhahood was extant to be attained. Not me, Shakyamuni, attained it like Shakyamuni suddenly is billions of years old. No, that's translation error. That's a misunderstanding. That's compounding the problem. Do you see? What I attained, in other words, sitting under the Bodhi tree that particular day when I attained perfect enlightenment, that enlightenment has been there since time without beginning. It's always been there. I became aware of it that day, but it's always been there. That's what he's saying. All the other sutras, such as the Flower Garland Wisdom and Mahavarchana, not only conceal that fact that people of the two vehicles can attain Buddhahood, but also fail to make clear that the Buddha attained enlightenment countless kalpas in the past. Buddha, not Shakyamuni. These sutras have two flaws. First, because they teach that the 10 worlds are separate from one another. What have I been telling you about the 10 worlds, the 3,000 realms? Right? Go back and look at the set of videos on the 3,000 realms. I make this very clear. We're taught and we think of, oh, I'm in the world of hell right now. Or I'm in the world of hunger. I just can't get enough. You're fooling yourself. You simply, you're looking at teachings of calculus with the mind of a 6-year-old. You're not getting it. We talk about the 10 worlds to illustrate the vast differences in the way we experience the engine of life. At moments in rage and hell, in other moments with utter joy and indescribable, and other moments like everything is static. And somehow we find some odd comfort in that. At other moments, just voraciously learning and getting little ahas and insight. Woo! Learning and realization, they kind of go together. Oh, I get that now. That's exciting. The perennial student, yeah. And teachers. This is where constantly, what Buddhism is saying is that in those 10 worlds, we're constantly flying through them at moments of time we can't even experience, other than they're inculcated into our karmic freight train. It's there, but consciously thinking about it, that takes a lot of time. Thoughts last thousands of moments. We think they're instant, but they're built on thousands of decisions and migrations. And so we say in the 10 worlds, the 10 worlds are also extant within each of the 10. And then our mind starts to bend a little bit. Well, you mean there's a Buddha of hunger? There's a learning of hell? There's a hell of learning? Oh, yeah, I remember studying for that test. Yeah, there's a hell of learning. But we still aren't getting it. We're getting more complex. We're learning that the worlds aren't so solid. They're very mutable. What we're still not getting is that each of those worlds have the 10 factors, right? Nyoze sho, nyoze so, nyoze yin, nyoze yen, nyoze kan, nyoze ho, right? Every time we do Gangyo, we should be reminding ourselves, oh yeah, every one of these worlds requires an experience that has what? Shape, color, energy, movement, right? We're reminding ourselves constantly that nothing is static. So we're never in the world of. We're never in the mire of 100 worlds of. 3,000 realms with different properties, 10 of them in each one, all migrating through time, past, present, and future, all with the qualities of life and physicality, right? The 3 factors, the 3 realms, I should say. By the time you get to that number, the numbers are irrelevant. The point is that our karmic engine is running through time, momentum, with its tendencies and conditions. That's about all we can hope to identify, that manifest from potential of everything in this not so specific, but tendency, moment to moment to moment to moment. Just to perceive that is amazing. That's Buddha. But to train ourselves to stay in Buddha, we can then begin to not only normalize Buddha-ness, but influence it. Influence it toward the affirmation of the engine of life. Manifest it in its most amazing potentials. And those potentials that seem to be negative, destructive, whatever adjectives you want to put them, but they don't lead to this amazing experience of life, we can quiet them down or convert them into potential of a life-affirming way, source, happiness. But in the process of doing all of this, without analyzing the crap out of it, without noticing, we're no longer controlled by the database of stuff we thought was real and permanent. We're now living in life, not dragging the past along with us, but living every moment to its full potential. Buddha. Only from that place, as he said before, can you converse with others who are doing the same thing, Sangha. The magnificence of this, the difficulties of this, the obstacles to this, because then you understand what the other side of the door looks like and how precious it is. All of the other sutras, such as the Flower Garland, Wisdom, Mahavarachana, not only conceal the fact that the people of the 2 vehicles can attain Buddhahood, but that they also fail to make clear that the Buddha attained enlightenment countless kalpas in the past. These sutras have 2 flaws. First, because they teach that the 10 worlds are separate from one another, they fail to move beyond the provisional doctrines and to reveal the doctrine of the 3,000 realms in a single thought moment of life, as it is expounded in the theoretical teaching of the Lotus Sutra. Second, because they teach that Shakyamuni Buddha attained enlightenment for the first time in this world, referring only to his provisional aspect, Shakyamuni, they fail to reveal the fact stressed in the essential teaching that the Buddha attained enlightenment countless kalpas ago. Buddha-ness has always existed. I, Shakyamuni, simply realized it in this lifetime. That's what it's saying. These two great doctrines are the core of the Buddha's lifetime of teachings and the very heart and marrow of all the sutras. But not until the Lotus does he say, look, this is what you do. Not me, not Buddha. Buddha is something for you to experience. You do it. Here's the easiest method I can give you to invoke it. Now that I've taught you all of this, you should be able to do it on your own. Because it's already there. You just haven't focused on it, right? All right, I've been going on and on and on and on. Forgot the time. We will continue with the expedient means chapter in the next video. All this just makes total sense, doesn't it? If you understand how to read it. You get caught up in these translations and stories and so forth, you can miss it. You can miss it because even the translators have egos. And so they translate words in the way that, even if they're impressed, still relates to their entity, their manness, womanness. But if they see it from the idea of Buddha-ness, if they only practiced and chanted and performed these tasks, it would come to them very easily, as it will to you, or does to you. I'm just here to remind you in my own way, my own words, but hopefully it's inspiring enough. It's a inspiring, weird word. I want to click on that attic light for you. If I can help you do that, then that's the purpose of this resource, right? Just as Nichiren was desperately trying to click on the attic lights of all his followers. Look, Shakyamuni says it. It's very clear. Look, it's not me. I'm just championing it. And that's what we're all trying to do. Be like Nichiren. Emulate Nichiren. You don't have to suffer. People don't want to hear that they create their own suffering. I understand. Ego. Screw you, I created this misery. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to accuse you. I'm trying to open a window, get a breath of fresh air in here so that you can see for yourself how this is within your experience to change, to alter, to mollify, to influence. You. Yes, you. Ego and all. You can transcend this. It's not an easy thing for ourselves, let alone others. But once you see it, how can you stop? How can you hold back? Propagation, it's an essential, not because it's a rule and we're told how to do it. It's because once you experience this clarity, you can't keep that from people. Hell, even if you don't say a word, they will sense it. They will they will ask you, what is it? How do you do that? Why are you that way? The why. Love the why. So understand, truly, when I say I have great appreciation for your practice, that's what I'm talking about. I know it takes effort. And I know the rewards are words, useless, yeah? Attain Buddhahood. Work on it every day. Life changing and modifying around you becomes so habitual, you'll take it for granted. Oh, yeah, more epiphanies. Yeah, yeah. Oh, it's 10 a.m. Should have had 4 by now. It's happening even now. So thank you. Thank you. Please like and subscribe, not for my ego, but just for the propagation of this resource. Because that's how Google works, right? YouTube. If you can make use of and as a reminder, as a study tool, the ebooks or the print books, that's all there, trying to capsulize these teachings in a digestible way to our modern minds. I want to add more. I continue to add more. That also supports the growth and the proliferation of these teachings, yeah? So you're all patrons, bodhisattvas. That's what we do. So thank you. Thank you for all of that. You've heard me say it so many times. Sincerely, though, thank you. Thank you for your efforts. And I'll see you in the next one. We'll continue. Bye for now.